All right, Erik, you set the scene then. Where are we? Where are we sitting? Tell me about this space that we're in because I want to talk about it. It is fantastic. So you tell us where we are.
Yeah, thanks. We're actually here. It's Hyde Park, so it's kind of a glorified storage unit, I guess you could say. It's a little bit bigger and heated and cooled, and I've been in here since I think 2015 or 16 when they first built these units. There's quite a few in here actually, but we've been able to work and make it into kind of our own space. Amy has done a great job of that. For a while it was kind of just where I shoved my stuff I couldn't fit at the house, and now it's actually somewhere we can work, and I can come work on cars when I need to, any kind of maintenance they need, and it's been a good little spot for me.
Now when you say cars, let's hit on some really cool ones. First off, let's start with your very first one. Is that a quarter midget back there?
Yeah, that's my first ever real race car. I had a yard kart I raced around at the house for a little while when I was younger, and then by the time I was 7, we got that car and started racing it. I actually raced it until I quit running quarter midgets when I was, I guess I was about 12, so I had that car in my whole quarter midget career.
Any memories, anything that stands out when you think back to that time?
Yeah, you know, I can remember quite a bit about it. I started racing that, and my first paint scheme I picked out and put together, I wanted the flames because I like Jeff Gordon and I was always a fan, and so it kind of fit my deal there for the quarter midget, and we were able to put that together, so that was cool. But then from there, just, you know, learning how to race and becoming a racer, and a lot of days of practice and testing that I never really wanted to do, but my dad really thought it was important, and it was. I didn't know, and I don't think he really knew either, but he figured if I could go make laps, it should be like any other sport, right? Anytime you practice and you're getting better. So a lot of things you learn in quarter midgets that carry through your whole career, just the essentials, the fundamentals of racing are taught there. And
then we've got 2 snowball derby cars here?
Just the one.
Just the one?
Yep, that was actually my first ever late model back in 2010. That was the first one I had and raced. It was a pro late model. It wasn't a super late model. I raced around with the ASA late model series is what it was then, and then it turned into the CRA series after that, and then that other one was my first super late model that we built in the end of 2011, and went and ran the World Crown for my first super race, and then we won the Governor's Cup, and then the next year we won the Derby with that car. That car has actually got a lot of pretty big wins on it. It's won the Winchester 400 3 times, the Snowball Derby, the Governor's Cup, the Red Bud. It's been a really good car, but it's been retired since about 2015 was the last time it's been ran. All
right, my math and my dates may be off. So is that the Derby car that everybody talks about? The Derby that you beat Kyle Busch? That's the car? Yeah,
same car that was in that race that we beat Kyle. And the next year I was in a KBM car. So that was the car, and it's been a great car. It's a Port City car that I've always ran, and it was finally time to put it away after 2015. I thought it had its fair share of good runs, so it's time to put it away.
How often do you get asked about that race, whether it's when you're doing meet and greets, maybe fans, maybe even media still nowadays? How much does that race come up?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, it's been, 7 years now since that race, but it still gets brought up a lot and asked, and it's just because it's an interesting story to really, anyone involved in racing, because it was a big moment for me. I mean, it was a big moment for my career, and one that was, just a little storybook, I guess, really, if you look at racing and how things work out sometimes. It was one of those moments that you can't really script any better, and it's just fun for me to tell the story. I mean, it was cool because, you look at late model racing now, and with young kids getting into the sport, a lot of them are with teams that have been established in late model racing, and they'll just go and rent those rides, which is fine. It's great, but for us, it was a family team, and that was something that isn't around as much anymore. So it was kind of cool to tell that story, and how we were able to. I mean, it was really me, my dad, and a guy named Tony Youngs that put that car together for the Snowball, and they both had full-time jobs. I was in school, so the only time we could work on it was after dinner. We'd go over to the shop and get there about 7 o'clock. Sometimes we'd eat there, and we worked on it every night. It took us about 2 months to get the car ready, so it was kind of you know, a neat story and really cool to know, you know, if you really do put the effort in and the work in, things can play out that way.
All right, my favorite car in this whole place, the one immediately I had to go look at was, it looks like it still was just rolled out of Victory Lane at Daytona from last July. Yeah. Confetti, probably a little bit of liquids dried on there somewhere, damage on the rear from accidents. Yep. How cool is it to have not only that car, but straight out of Victory Lane, it looks like?
Yeah, you know, I knew after that race I wanted that car. Yeah, it was always a dream of mine, obviously, to win a cup race, and then the next part was to keep that car. So a lot of times I've seen a lot of guys keep their first win car, but not very often is it that it looks like it did right off the racetrack. So I was very fortunate that I was able to talk to a couple people at Joe Gibbs Racing and convince them to let me have that thing the way it was. It took a lot of convincing, but it was cool. I was glad to finally get it over here, just the way it came off the racetrack, which is really special for me. We were actually supposed to take that car as a backup to Talladega, and I was like, well, if we do that, then you're going to have to fix it and clean it, and I was like, I really don't want that. So they were fortunate enough and nice enough to let me have it this way, so it's pretty special. How
did this space come to be? Because there's some guys who don't even think about saving stuff, and then there's other drivers, other athletes who want to keep mementos, want to keep stuff that is special to them. So I guess first off, how did this space come to be? And I guess you are one of those guys who likes to hang on to stuff.
Yeah, certain things, you know, in my racing career that remind me of just marquee moments or special moments in my racing career. And for me, this kind of started out as, you know, a place we went after I moved out of Michigan and North Carolina. We had a shop up in Durand, Michigan, where we had our late model team and had all the cars and the equipment and everything up there. So I didn't want to obviously keep that shop anymore because I wasn't going to be up there very much, and so I was looking for an area down here where I could really move a lot of that equipment and keep most of it, and kind of came about here and was able to move in here. And it started really, all I had in here was the 2 late models and some equipment from my late model racing days, and you know, now it's turned into more of my toy shop than anything. It's not a very functioning race shop anymore, but it's cool to just have somewhere where you can go and keep the things that are special to me.
All right, while we're on the topic of racing, you're starting to pad the years on now on your Cup Series resume. So we're, 3 years in, you've come trucks, Xfinity, a little bit of everything. First off, tell me what you've learned from each series to the next, besides the fact that it gets harder and you have to put in a little bit more work as you climb the ladder.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, number one. But, you know, I think back to 2013 and my first race in the trucks was at Martinsville, and I remember it pretty vividly. I'd gotten one test in a truck. This is when you could still go and test at non-NASCAR tracks. So we had tested at, I think, Caraway. We went up there as a team, KBM. It was me, Joey Coulter, and Bubba Wallace were driving trucks up there. And we came back, and a couple weeks later went up to Martinsville, and I didn't really know what to expect. You know, I'd never really driven a big, heavy stock car before. I'd always ran super late models, which are obviously really fast and really light and more purpose-built race cars. So getting into the trucks was a really big change, and at that time there was really a lot of you know, names. When you think of the truck series, those guys were really there. You know, Ron Hornaday and Timothy Peters and James Buescher. Chase Elliott was making his first start. Ryan Blaney was in there. So there was a really tough series at that time, and coming in, I remember in practice we struggled, and I was frustrated just because, you know, at 16, you're getting your first opportunity in Kyle Busch's truck. So you run really well. And after a couple races, you start to get used to it and adjust. And it seemed like the winning kind of, it just comes to you, you know, and you're able to do it. And then the Xfinity Series was the same way. It took a couple races to figure it out, and then we were winning consistently. And then the Cup Series, it just takes longer to really put the puzzle together. You know, you really have to have all the pieces. You have to have a great team, number one, obviously crew chief and engineers and mechanics, and you have to have a great pit crew. Then you have to be a great driver. You have to really up your level as a driver, especially now in the Cup Series. It's just very, very tough. There's some very good drivers at this level, you know, that early at the peak of their game. You look at Kyle and Harvick and Truex and all these guys who are in their mid-30s to late 30s who are really at the top of their game right now. It just takes a lot to keep up and be competitive with them.
You've gone from being the young kid that we've all known to now growing into a young adult. So in that regard, how have you grown professionally and personally on and off the racetrack in this time?
Yeah, I mean, you learn a lot over, the time. I grew up fairly quick. I mean, I moved down here when I was 16 by myself, which obviously was a huge change for a 16-year-old. You learn a lot of things really quickly coming down here and living on your own. And then, you learn how to deal with people better. You learn how to manage your time better. And there's just so many things you learn along the way and figure out to better yourself. So it's been a great journey. I mean, I've learned so much in racing, just through a personal side, through a business side, through all the partnerships I've had with different sponsors and relationships there they've been great. I've been able to really learn how to deal with all kinds of people, and it's been a great learning experience for me.
I haven't spotted it, but I believe, going back to here in this space, are there Craftsman tools here that were your dad's that you now have? Can you tell me that story?
Yeah, they're actually all in that pit box back there. That was our original pit box back from our late model days. And we always were, funny enough, being involved with DeWalt and Stanley and Craftsman now, that we were always kind of a Craftsman family more than anything. We grew up with them, working on them just because it was what we had. It was what was around. My grandpa had them, my dad used them, and then I eventually now have them down here. So it's always been kind of the same set of tools, which has been cool, and it was really neat for me to start that relationship with Craftsman coming on board because, it's easy when you have a connection to something to really relate, and that for me was something really easy to relate to.
But can you use them?
Yeah.
Do you know how to use them?
Yeah.
So you can tinker on stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm decently mechanically inclined. General car maintenance isn't a big deal for me. I can do that. I'm not much of a motor guy, and I'm not much of a wiring guy, but I can do most of the other stuff.
What about being a handyman at home? You've posted, I think it was last year, you had a really funny picture of some DeWalt tools at home, and you were doing stuff. Are you a handyman at home, or are you just trying to make the sponsor happy?
No, I mean, I can be. We were out doing some stuff that day. We were actually, we just built a fire pit at my house, and we were like, well, it's a perfect night for a fire. It was maybe late January, so I was like, yeah, it'd be a good night. Well, it sounds great, and we had some firewood, but we didn't have anywhere to sit, so I didn't really want to go to the store, so we actually just made up some benches from it was some shelving we had left over. So there's little things you can do along the way that make you, I guess, a handyman. I don't know what the definition of a handyman is anymore, but I guess for the most part, when something needs to be fixed, we can figure it out.
All right, going back to some more cars here. I believe we're sitting next to, is this Dad's car that you have gotten back? I know there's a story here. I know a little bit about it. Dad, I believe, had to get rid of this car to help finance your racing way back when you were younger. So take me through the story of this car and then how eventually it got back to you.
Yeah, it wasn't this one specifically. That one's at my house right now. But that car.
So you keep that one close.
Yeah, that one's usually over at my place. But it's a '65 Corvette that I remember very vividly as a kid growing up, and we had. My dad was involved in a Corvette company, and he always got made fun of because him and a partner owned this business and he didn't own a Corvette. And, honestly, we didn't really have a ton of money at that point in our lives because we had just purchased this business and we're trying to get things going. So it was kind of a struggle. And that's honestly what almost kept us from even getting involved in racing. We didn't really have the funds to do it at that time. And so as we got going in racing and started to race more and more, obviously you need more money to race more, and my dad had finally gotten this Corvette, and we'd had it for about 4 or 5 years, and I was always a big fan of it. He would let me drive it every once in a while down the street, and so he would keep it up at Paragon in the wintertime in the showroom, just as somewhere to store it. Obviously in Michigan you're not going to be driving any Corvettes around in the winter, so a guy came in and wanted to buy it. He just liked the car, fell in love with it, offered to buy it. And he sold it that day, and I came home from school, and then he came home later that night and had said he'd sold it, and I just couldn't believe it, because he really, really loved that car, and I did too. So it was kind of my goal, not necessarily from that moment on, but once I started getting more into racing, to be able to buy that car back for him one day. And finally I got to the point where I was getting ready to do it, and unfortunately he got sick, but I still was able to get the car back and have it now back in the family, so it was pretty special.
So what is the one that we're sitting next to then? Let me redeem myself here. What is this one? I know you like classic cars, so is this just one that you liked and you got, or is there a story behind this one too?
No, this one was a little impulse buy, I guess, at the time. I'm trying to remember what even made me do this, but I always liked Smokey and the Bandit growing up, and this is the Smokey and the Bandit car. So I was actually at a car showroom on a day off one time in Charlotte, and I was looking around, and they had a car similar to this, and I was like, man, I really liked it and really felt comfortable in it. So I started looking for the exact one I really wanted. It took me a long time to find, and I finally found this car in Indiana, and went down there, and this guy had owned it since really the late 80s, early 90s. It's a 1978, and it only, he never drove it. He just showed it around at car shows, so it only has about 15,000 miles on it. So I ended up buying it from him, and I drive it all the time now. I think cars are meant to be driven, so I drive them everywhere. But yeah, it's been a good car. I blew it up about a year and a half ago, so we had to put a new motor in it, but other than that, it's been a pretty good car.
So the theme is classic cars, so what else do we have in here? I think we've got two more, if you can tell me.
Yeah, this, and then that's a 69 Corvette that actually I'd bought when I was younger, for sure. I was probably, I was probably 18 when I bought that car, and it didn't look like that. It was fully in need of restoration, and I bought it from a friend of our family. And me and my dad had started working to restore it and getting going on it, and we had to put that project off to the side. So I finally got it to a guy up in Michigan who restored it for me. And actually, I just got this car down here about 3 or 4 months ago. So it's a brand new '69 Corvette right now. It hasn't really been driven much, but yeah, it turned out really good.
Eric, I could swear you and I had a conversation a couple years ago about cars. And I am 95% sure you told me at that time that when it comes to cars and your love of cars, there's also this thing where you don't believe in car washes and you will wash the car yourself. Am I correct? Is that an accurate memory?
Yeah, these cars, I will never take any of these through the car wash. I mean, my daily driver I'll take through, but I don't know, I grew up, we always washed cars by hand for the most part, other than, if we ever had a special car. If it was just your daily driver, it was fine. You took it through the car wash. But, anything classic cars or cars that meant something to the family, you always, when you had a day off and it was nice out, you went and you washed the car by hand and you waxed it and you did everything you were supposed to do. So it was, I don't know, it's something kind of that got instilled in me and still do today.
All right, switching gears a little bit. Browse through social media, your social media pages show me what? Fishing, ice fishing, snowmobiling, activities on the lake, all of that fun stuff. When you get a chance, are you the guy who, if you can be active, you're going to be out doing stuff and not sitting at home?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, we usually find something to do on our off days when we don't have anything going on. The off season is always great for that. Obviously, from the end of Homestead up until end of January, I usually spend up in Michigan, which you think Michigan in the winter isn't really a great time for activities and to do stuff, but it's actually, there's a lot going on then. When you live there and you're there all the time and you have to spend winter there, you try to figure out stuff to do. So snowmobiling is something that I recently got into and got a snowmobile and went out and we went up to Houghton Lake, which people in Michigan will know where that is, but it's a great riding area, tons of trails. People don't know, but you can go to Michigan and ride thousands of miles of trails up in the northern portions of Michigan. So that's really cool. Ice fishing is always fun. It's not as cold as you think. Most people think you go out there and you freeze to death, but we went out last time and it was probably around negative 15 to 20 ambient without the wind chill. And we set up and you get your shanty set up over your holes in the ice and you get your heater going and it's pretty nice. So but yeah, for the most part, we stay pretty active with something. You're talking about temperature, and I'm sitting here still not even knowing what ice fishing is. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess if you've never done it, it sounds a little odd, but the lakes freeze over so good in the winter in Michigan. Obviously, you can walk on them no problem, and most people drive their trucks out to wherever they want to set up or their snowmobiles, and so basically, you'll go out and you'll find a spot in the ice where the fish are biting, and you'll drill a hole with a big auger, and the ice is usually, if it's a cold winter, the ice will be a couple feet thick, and you'll drill your hole down in there and basically sit over your little hole in the ice and drop your line down there and sit there, and you don't hold it. There's a little stand for them. You sit there and you wait for the end to move, and when the end moves, you grab the line, and you don't actually even reel your line in on when you're ice fishing. You just grab the line and set it, and then you just kind of pull the fish out. So it's a little, I like it better than regular fishing. I'm not a huge fan of just going out on the boat and waiting for a fish to bite, but there's something about ice fishing I enjoy.
I was gonna say, what's the difference? You're still waiting for a fish, right? And this time you're not even holding the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Ice fishing, for me, I seem to catch more. I mean, if you really get going, there's days where you can catch, bluegill are really big up in Michigan at that time of year, depending on the lake you're on. And if it's a good day, you can reel in, 10 to 15 fish in 2 or 3 hours, which is quite a bit.
I think I also forgot to mention golf, which is apparently a very common thing now between a lot of drivers. What is it about golf that was attractive to you?
Yeah, I'm not quite a golfer like some of these guys are. I mean, I go out there and knock the ball around, but it's I'm not shooting par by any means. So I do it for something to get outside and go around and be on the course is always nice, but I don't take it very seriously. It's more just something fun to kill time for me, but it seems to be pretty serious advent for some of the guys in the garage. Yeah,
I think for me it would be more of, hey, I can just go knock the hell out of something. I'm just gonna take my frustration out on this golf ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's relaxing. I mean, you get out on the course and you're not really, you're not thinking about anything else. You're just worried about what you got going on for golf that day, so it's kind of nice.
It's getting warmer out. Does that mean that we're gonna see Erik Jones maybe out on Lake Norman doing some crazy stuff?
No, I don't. I'll go on the lake, but I don't do any like water sports. I've never really tried, to be honest with you. Growing up, we didn't really go on the lake. We were racing every weekend. We didn't have a boat or anything. So the first time I really got out on the lake was when I came down here. I have a jet ski I'll go out on. I don't have a boat. I'm not that cool, but sometimes we'll go out on some buddies' boats or whatever else. But I don't do the water sports. I stay away from that.
So Coach Gibbs and myself as media, we don't have to worry about getting the call that Erik Jones has injured himself doing a non-racing related activity.
I'd say the odds are pretty low, to be honest with you. I don't have it. The jet ski, I doubt. I mean, if you get hurt on it, you're being pretty stupid probably. But I don't think that's going to happen. Are
you getting more comfortable sharing that side of yourself with fans when it comes to social media, because this is obviously something that has exploded with all of sports, and NASCAR drivers are some of the biggest ones who use it. Are you getting comfortable sharing not only racing related stuff, but maybe what you're doing away from the racetrack?
Yeah, I'd say more so. Social media has actually really changed a lot even since I came into the sport, which sounds funny, but it's really gotten a lot different. Sponsors are really interested in it, and fans are way more active now on social media than they've ever been, and they're way more curious than just you sending a quick tweet out and, hey, this or that, what I'm doing today, every couple weeks. Now it's, pressure to take a picture of whatever you're doing and be able to post it if you're doing something cool, and for me, I just don't think about it a lot. I'm not a guy who, honestly, if I wasn't racing, would probably be on social media very much, just because it's just not something I think about, taking pictures or anything of what I'm doing. So it's a little odd for me. I've been learning how to do it more and more and trying to get better at it, but for the most part, it's definitely, I wouldn't say out of my comfort zone. It's just not necessarily something I really think about, so that's something I try to get better at.
Well, but okay. Here's the funny thing, though. Even if you're not on social media, there's a lot of Oscar on social media, and he has his own Instagram page now.
Yeah. I don't run that. People always ask me, they're like, "Yeah, you saw that picture of Oscar you posted." I'm like, "Look, I can't even log in to Oscar's account. That's not in my realm." Oscar is ran by my sister, I believe.
Oscar has people?
I guess my sister is, his agent, for the most part, because I've never posted a picture on there. I don't know, like I said, I can't log in. Somebody kicked me off it. At one point, I was able to get on his account and go to it, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So I guess I got banned from that.
How has it been being dog dad, though? Because you do post a lot about him, and we get to see him grow up and all the fun stuff. And how's that been for you?
No, it's been good. He'll actually be 2 in less than a month now, so he's grown up. He's less of a puppy now than he ever was, but he's still pretty pretty crazy and pretty active, but it's been good. We always had dogs growing up. We had a golden retriever when I was a kid, about 4 or 5 when we got that dog, and then my mom got another dog that she still has now, Bernese Mountain Dog. And so I always kind of wanted one of my own when I had the opportunity and I was in the right situation to be able to take care of one. And I finally got to that spot where I was like, okay, I feel like I can take care of a dog the way I need to now and have a house and a yard for him to play in. And so Oscar came around and it was good. You know, you gain a lot of responsibility with a dog, and in some ways you lose some freedom because you can't obviously leave your dog at home all day by himself. So you have to really take care of him. But it's been fun to train him and watch him grow up. And he's a good dog. He's really, really friendly and loves people and loves to play. So it's been fun to have him around.
All right, let me wrap it up with this question. I got one more for you. So again, going back to this space that we're sitting in, is there something that one day you would love to be able to have here in this space that you could look back on?
Well, I mean, the next thing I'd love to add would be, hopefully a championship car one day. I mean, that's the biggest long-term goal I would say in my life at this point, is to become a champion, and that's a lot of work and a long ways out, but that's definitely the goal in my racing career to have happen. So definitely be special to see one of those race cars sitting in here and be able to have it for myself someday.
All right, Erik, thank you for the time. This place, again, is fantastic, and I appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome.